Go Jackets.
What is going on, everyone, and welcome to WreckTalk. Hope you guys are having a great Monday. I found my glasses, so I'm having a better Monday, seeing the world a little bit more clearly. And today we're going to break down the South Carolina State game, the good, the bad, and maybe how that has us feeling leading into Ole Miss this Saturday. Before I get into that, you probably saw it in the title of the video. Kind of put my foot in my mouth. So I got a comment on the Mark Rogers post game that I did. The person basically said, should have known you were going to be critical of Christain Leary again. And I totally doubled down on it, and I think was rude, and I didn't need to be, and defensive. And I started off like, hey, man, this, that, and the other. And then this person said, I'm not a man, I'm a woman, and I'm Christain Leary's mother. I was like, oh, okay. And let me be clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with criticizing a player if that's due, if someone's play is poor or whatever. But I was actually brushing my own daughter's hair, and I was this morning before I took her to school. I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I've had more than one parent reach out to me, and I really do need to be mindful of, there are players that might watch this and their parents. And so if I am critical, I certainly need to be fair. And I don't think that I've really been fair in my criticism of Christain Leary, because really what am I criticizing him for? That he hasn't had a 80-yard kick return. He hasn't had, a 60-yard touchdown catch or a 75-yard touchdown run. And I don't think that that's fair to Christain Leary. I think I might have some unrealistic expectations of him, and I have kind of nipped at him. And so to Christain Leary and his mother, I apologize. And really, I was rude to you, and there's no excuse for that. I didn't, and it doesn't matter that I didn't know that you were his mother or not. And more importantly, I'll be better in the future about being more fair with and careful with the words I say. So I am sorry. I would never say I know how you feel, because I've not been in your position. I have a young daughter. But I can tell you this. If someone was critical of my kid, especially if I didn't feel like it was fair at all, I would do exactly the same thing. And I apologize for that. So that's why I titled the video the way I did. I kind of wanted to make sure you were watching that. And if you'd like, you can reach out. There's an email. We can have a discussion or whatever. But I did want to publicly, say that and say that I apologize. Let's get into the game. First of all, the bad. And I think any Tech fan would say if there was bad from that game, it was the defense. So South Carolina State had 291 yards of total offense. We got 95 passing yards and 196 rushing yards. And I said in videos leading up to this, anytime you hold a team under 300 yards, I don't think you can really be that upset, even if it's South Carolina State. Holding a team under 300 yards is a good day. Now that I think of it, though, under the new clock rules, is that as impressive as it used to be? It can't be because the clock continuously runs. So we kind of have to, or I have to reevaluate kind of these metrics a little bit. And it's not really the yardage that's as concerning to me. It's that they were really able to gash us on the ground and do it fairly consistently. And I mean, I can't remember how many times they had us. It was 2nd and 5. I mean, they were rarely behind the chains, particularly in the second half. And even leading into the first half, everyone in the building knows they're going to throw, and they were able to throw it and drive it right down the field on us. That's more what's concerning to me, is when they had to make plays, they were kind of able to do it, or situationally they were able to do it. Let's see here. Yeah, we just weren't able to be that disruptive in the backfield as I'd like for us to be. Now, we do have some injuries. Obviously, Sylvain Yonjuan and is injured. Eddie Kelly stepped up. He was actually our leading tackler with 9 tackles. I don't know how serious Eddie Kelly's injury is. He's the kid that transferred sophomore out of South Florida, University of South Florida. Really balled out, in my opinion. But he could barely walk coming off the field. Had to be helped off. And so I hope it's not as serious as it looked, but it looked fairly serious. We'll have to see in the next press conference what Key has to say about that. Also, Chase Lane, this is something I heard Bryce Kuhn say in his live show last night. Chase Lane will be out for the foreseeable future, and in Bryce's words, the soonest that you would see him is Boston College. So if you haven't seen his show last night, definitely go watch that. But that hurts. It doesn't hurt as much as Eddie Kelly. You don't want to see anyone get injured. And look, Chase Lane, it seems to be a big part of what a big tool that Buster Faulkner wants to use in this offense. But we are fairly deep at wide receiver. We're not deep at defensive end. So it's going to be next man up. I would be very surprised if Eddie Kelly plays Saturday, and I'd honestly be surprised if I would think he'd be out for at least 2 weeks with how gimpy he was coming off the field. And I would really hate, as important as this game is against Ole Miss, to kind of put him out there when he's not ready and further injure and have a worse injury. I don't know if it was his ankle or leg, but yeah, I hope the best for him. The other thing, and it's kind of a mixed bag, we like to do this screen, like quick hitch route. I'd have to go back and look at it. I don't know that it's a screen as much as like we're trying to cross crack block and get the ball out quick. Well, we did that like 3 or 4 times to open up the game and got nothing from it. In fact, we lost a good bit of yardage. So that seems to be something that we really like to do. And when I was at the game, the wide receivers are like looking around like, I don't know who to block. So that's got to be better, or we got to not run that play as much. Basically, our perimeter blocking at wide receiver really needs to improve. It's right now, for me, the weakest part of our offense. We got to get better at blocking at wide receiver. That being said, though, Bryce talked about this as well, and I also noticed it. We talk about the chess game that is college football. Later in the game, we pumped the hitch and ran a hitch and go for a big yardage. So even though you get a negative play, you don't know that it's not going to set up something later. That being said, though, we shouldn't be looking around like we ain't got no clue who to block at wide receiver. So need to improve there. Now, the good. You got to start with Haynes King. Haynes King threw for 290 yards, 4 touchdowns, and it could have been a lot more. Obviously, we put Zach Pyron in. Had a pick that wasn't his fault. Came in garbage time. Like you can't judge a kid for that. Had some nice runs though. Zach Pyron. It's a great problem to have when your backup quarterback is as good as Zach Pyron is, and he is good. And as Brent Key said, he's going to be a very good quarterback for Georgia Tech. But Haynes King looked great and answered the question for me, like, how good is Haynes King when he has a little bit of time? And even going back to the criticism I had of Christain Leary, I think I was similarly unfair to Haynes King. After the Louisville game, I made the statement, I think that the moment might have got too big for him, and he was a little bit indecisive at times as far as when to run and when to throw the ball. I don't think that was fair either. And in fact, I think that was equally as unfair to him because he wasn't working with a lot. He didn't have wide receivers necessarily just running wide open down the field or had a lot of time. Shut me up. Now that we see when he has time, I mean, he went through his progressions. He was making quick decisions, man, the ball comes out of this kid's hands with some velocity. And like, he threw a touchdown to Dominique Blaylock coming in the back corner of the end zone on the money. Threw a touchdown to Brett Seether. That's 2 touchdowns now to tight ends, something that, I can't get enough of. And maybe even more importantly, his misses. And from what I remember, he only had really 2 bad throws, but his misses are in the right spot. So, like if you're throwing a deep drag or something across the middle or to the perimeter, you don't want to throw it behind him. That's a ball that gets picked off, and he didn't. He threw it. If you're going to throw that ball and miss, you need to miss out of bounds, and he was able to do that. And you can't give him credit without giving credit to the offensive line. Again, I know we're playing South Carolina State, but they blocked well. They looked to work really well together as a unit. We moved people around, like Scaglione, I think, got the start. Joe Fusel got the start, moved other people to tackle. And look, whatever we need to do, or whatever the coaching staff needs to do to get that offensive line, to give Haynes King enough time and just the slightest hole to these running backs, that's what we got to do. So big kudos to the offensive line. And, man, number 2, we got to talk about Jamal Haynes. I also hope he's good. He came off gimpy one play where a guy, just jumped on top of him. He had well over 100 yards, had a big, 60-yard run right before half. We only had, 45 seconds or 30 seconds left, and we're just kind of conceding to run the ball out. The guy's shifty. The guy's got speed. The guy's a very hard runner. He's hard to get down. You're not just going to arm tackle him. And he's a kid I look at and it's like, this kid's just a ball player. This kid just is going to make plays when you need to make plays. In the same way that, on defense last year, Charlie Thomas just was always making plays. That's what that's what Jamal Haynes is to the running back room. So we have a really good 1-2 punch with him. Travion Cooley looked good, but also I believe fumbled again. We got to cut that out. Can't fumble the football, especially on the 1-yard line. I mean, there's no good time to fumble it, but when you get inside the 5-yard line, or even when you get in the red zone and you can't convert that to points, that's going to get you beat a lot of times. Didn't see a ton of Dante Smith, but another kid I was really high on in the preseason, and I think a kid that has a lot of talent. I mean, there was a reason I was high on him. In the preseason, I picked him to be one of my breakout players. I just think we have to use him right. Dante Smith is not a kid that that's just going to run up the middle like Travion Cooley or Jordan Mason was able to do in the past. He's a kid that you're going to have to run off tackle, get him in space, and use him effectively. And I think he can be a very effective weapon for this Georgia Tech offense, and I certainly haven't wrote him off yet. Would like to see a little bit more of him this week, though, and contribute. Eric Singleton Jr., true freshman, smaller kid, just absolutely balling out. This kid is going to be a fantastic player for Georgia Tech. Caught a 40-yard touchdown pass that Haynes King dropped in on a dime. And here's kind of things that you don't hear talked about a ton of, chemistry between a quarterback and his wide receiver core. When he threw that ball, Eric Singleton Jr. wasn't open yet. In fact, he was about a step behind the DB, and Haynes King just trusted that when he threw that ball, Eric Singleton Jr. was going to be able to get separation, and he did, for a big explosive play. And he had a few. Eric Singleton Jr. looked really good. We talked about Brett Seether and the touchdown he caught. Dominique Blaylock, we talked about the nice ball he caught. Going through my notes here. Braylon Oliver, I didn't realize he was nursing an injury. Key talked about it a little last night. But we really need a big run-stopping threat or run-stopper linebacker. And Braylon Oliver shut the door on a lot of the running plays in the second half when he came in. There wasn't a kid that broke a tackle off of him, and that's got to get better too. We should have talked about that in the bad. We still had some kind of sloppiness, missed tackles. That's going to get us beat too. We got to improve on that. And the only I said that Haynes King only threw 2 bad balls. He did check down when Christain Leary was open over on the post. If he would have just took another second and he had the time to kind of scan the field again, Christain Leary was wide open. And that being said, like, I do think Christain Leary is gonna ball out. And I don't really want to rehash it. The reason that I kind of criticized Christain Leary the way I did is because he is an absolute phenom of an athlete. He is going to be the fastest kid on the field in most games that he steps in on. And if we can get Haynes King a little bit of time to throw, this kid has the speed to get open and make explosive plays, and I'm certain that he will for Georgia Tech. So when he is wide open on a post for an easy 6 points, we got to be able to find him. Let's talk about special teams. There was a blocked field goal in this game that didn't go against us. That's got to feel great. Blocked an extra. It wasn't a field goal. We blocked an extra point. That's great. We did have a miss with Gavin Stewart though, it was like a 47-yarder, but he has plenty of leg. He can hit them from 60 plus. I think we brought in Aiden though, so there and he looked good. Hit a field goal or 2. So do we have a change at kicker? And do you have Gavin Stewart kicking off and Aiden place kicking? I don't know. All I know is, you got to get – if you're within 45 yards, I think you got to expect you can get 3 points out of that. So that looked better. Blaylock, again, looked really good returning punts. And that's something we haven't had in a while at Georgia Tech, is the ability to flip field position or even get 10, 15 yards on a return. And our coverage looks a lot better. So all the credit in the world to Dominique Blaylock. Could be a game changer for us at punt return. And the same with Christain Leary. He's returning kicks for us. He kind of got stuffed. He didn't get even back to the 25 against Louisville, but I don't think that we blocked very well for him. And he's the kid, like I said before, if he has a seam, he can take it the distance. He's a touchdown threat anytime he gets his hands on the ball anyways. And kind of peeking forward to Ole Miss, I think if we're going to beat Ole Miss, and I think we definitely can, Leary could be a big – if we can get a return, a special team score with Leary or Blaylock, I think we got a pretty good shot at winning that game. It's a 20-point spread, not many people thinking a lot of Tech in that game. I think people are overlooking or sleeping on Tech against Ole Miss, though. So those were kind of my thoughts from the game. Looking forward to Ole Miss. Just a little bit of a preview. I think we can score a lot of points against Ole Miss. I'm not super impressed with their defense. I think Haynes King's going to have a pretty good day. I think Haynes and Cooley will have a pretty good day. That game's going to come down to what kind of strides forward can we make on our defense. Can we get pressure on Jackson Dart, who's a very good quarterback? Can we get some turnovers on defense? Can we stop the run, basically? They have a very good running back. So it's probably going to come down to what defense can improve the most in week 3, right? So before I go, I do want to say I am putting an end to the audio formats and like the podcast audio format. So it's just too much work, and I do have to pay money to maintain that. And that money is going to be better spent in other areas, like a professional StreamYard subscription and these sorts of things for post-game shows and whatnot. So apologize for that, but I've got to do what is most sensible for the channel and my time. that being said, if you do want to support the channel so we can do more things, definitely becoming a member is a great way. There's a PayPal link and a CashApp link. All of that is in the description of the video. Hope y'all have a great Monday, and I'll talk to you guys soon.